Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to catch up and chat with amazing humans doing amazing work. So today I'm really happy to introduce Zoe Sinclair to the conversation. Welcome, Zoe.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Lovely to see you. So as always, I'll just do a very brief introduction and then Zoe, I'll ask you please to introduce yourself to the listeners. Zoe is somebody who I've met through the mental health world and in particular through a conference that she is one of the key founders of. So she's going to talk more about that. It's called This Can Happen. We'll hear more about it as we go through this conversation, no doubt. But I did actually have the pleasure of meeting Zoe in person during the conference a couple of years ago now. So that was when we were allowed to attend conferences in the physical sense, of course. And Zoe's just very passionate about this subject. You're going to hear that. She really does want to make a difference. And that is such an important part of all of our roles within mental health. So Zoe, welcome to the conversation. Please do your proper introduction for the listeners. Thank you.
Oh, you did the introduction very well. I'm not sure if I can better it. I'm Zoe. And in the mental health space, I am director and co-founder of This Can Happen, which in 2018 started off as a workplace mental health conference. The idea being that conversations were really beginning to start within the workplace, and we felt that there wasn't an opportunity for companies to share and really hear about what was going on in different workplaces that they could learn from. So we set up This Can Happen as a way that we hoped would be able to facilitate those conversations. It's been a really interesting journey. And obviously we are now in 2021 working towards our fourth conference, but the conference is sort of the main part of the year, but now there's so much else going on within This Can Happen, which of course I can tell you about. Yes, that is the role I played. There's a bit of background to it, which we can get into. But I essentially, my main role within This Can Happen is to put all the content together. So I bring in the speakers, decide what topics that we're going to talk about, talk with all the workplaces to really understand what should be the key themes that we cover in every year's conference.
Brilliant, and what a big task that is, because it is a big conference as well. And you know, you've really sort of hit the mark when it comes to workplaces, and the number of communities of workplaces that you support or that encourage to come along to those conferences is huge. So brilliant stuff. So welcome to this. I know you also have another role outside of the conference, which is your own business as well, right? A little bit around that, what you do with your business?
Yes, well, to be honest, that was instrumental in me sort of getting and founding This Can Happen. So very briefly, in a very kind of stereotypical way, I went to university. I studied history at university in London, and I always wanted to get into television. That was my thing. I really wanted to make television programs, and I was really lucky, and I got my first job at the BBC in London on the holiday programme. And I was a junior researcher, really, making more cups of tea and coffee than really making television programs. Yeah. But this was kind of the first program I worked on. And I worked there for 10 years, traveling around the world, making great television programs, all sorts of things that sort of you would have heard of in the factual entertainment department. And at the kind of the 9 year level, I started a family. And at the time, quite a different sort of landscape, because my daughter is now 19. It scares me every time I say that. But yes, so this was a long time ago. Yeah. And I went back to work after it was sort of 5.5 months maternity leave at that point. There was nothing called shared parental leave or anything like that then. That was maternity leave. And I went back and I realised that this was really tough. And that actually working parents weren't supported as much at all in the way that they are now, whether it was with leave, with any sort of tax incentives for childcare, anything like that, and certainly not in the workplace. So I had a child that didn't sleep during the night, and after 5.5 months, I'm coming to work completely exhausted and still needing to travel around the world. And for me, it just wasn't as great as it used to be. So fast forward a couple of years, I had another child, and I was working, my mind was working about how parents could be better supported in the workplace. Essentially, I left the BBC. I didn't go back after my second child.
Yeah.
And I set up a company, which at the time was called Parents Matter. And Parents Matter was basically a vehicle in which HR directors or HR teams could use us to support their working parents by putting on events in the workplace to support their working parents. And they would encourage parents to leave their desks at a lunchtime, go down to the auditorium or go into a training room and meet Parents Matter and their sleep expert on how to solve your children's sleep problems, or how to find the best childcare for your child, or how to move the best, find the best school for your child, or whatever. The link will be made with mental health in a minute.
I'm fascinated. I can already see it, so don't worry, I can already see it.
Right, so Parents Matter, I had no business sense whatsoever, and somehow or other, this company started growing and growing, and companies were recommending me, and again, sort of reminding you, this is now 17 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
17, 16 years ago. I was encouraging companies to set up, in my mind, what I was calling parent networks within their companies. Yeah. And companies really like that idea. And in big businesses, which was sort of my main target, first of all, in big law firms, in big banks, I was instrumental in helping companies set up parent networks, and we were providing events for these networks. Yeah. As years went on, I was sort of, I was working with 50 different facilitators on all sorts of different parenting subjects, and HR directors were coming to me and saying, listen, Zoe, we love this model. This is working really well, but we obviously have more than just working parents to support. We're putting on a diversity and inclusion week, or we're putting on a wellbeing week. Do you think you might be able to help? Yeah. And I sort of were getting these calls more and more often, and I realised, okay, if I want this company to expand and go the way that I really want it to, we've got to go beyond just supporting working parents. And so kind of within a week, I think I had a tweaked logo, and Parents Matter became Employees Matter. And we started being able to facilitate these conversations and talking to HR directors about their gender networks and their cultural networks and their disability networks, and providing events and initiatives for all these networks. So that has basically how Employees Matter has grown. And about 5 or 6, I'm so bad with timings, but I think about 5 or 6 years ago, I'm getting more and more conversations from my clients saying, Zoe, I need to support. We need to start talking about mental health, and I'm not really sure how to do it. Yeah. And I wasn't sure how to do it either. And I thought this was really interesting, and I really started looking into this and realizing how important the subject of mental health was. Because to be very honest with you, it wasn't a subject that we had been looking into a lot. Yeah. And a lot of the well-being stuff that we had been doing was very much based on the physical aspect. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I read in a local newspaper about this gentleman called Johnny Benjamin. Yep. And that he'd been through turmoil in his life. And I read, honestly, this little snippet about him and how this amazing gentleman had saved his life on the bridge, which I'm sure many of your viewers, listeners, know the story. And I thought, gosh, this is really interesting. I'm going to see if I can get in touch with him. And essentially, I'll never forget this. he replied straight away. And I said to him that this is the work I'm doing. I'm working in the corporate space and I really want to understand more about mental health. And he said, yeah, I'd love to meet. And we met in, I think it was a Costa Coffee in Victoria Station, him and Neil. And I told him exactly what I do and that I really wanted to understand more about mental health. And this was at a time when, yes, Johnny and Neil's story kind of was out there, but not in a way that people didn't know them as well as they know them now.
Yeah.
And they certainly hadn't sort of been around the speaker circuit and talking to people at all. And I just remember being totally and utterly blown away by their story. Yeah. And just a part of me I was just learning about things that I had never appreciated, never fully understood before. And I remember coming home that night or that afternoon and saying to my husband, oh my goodness, I have met the most inspiring people I've ever met in my life. And I know I need to address this right now in my business. And that was, and Johnny and Neil, that meeting with them was a real turning point. And basically what happened was a company, a very big bank, came to me, and this must have been in 2016. I think this was 2016. Yeah. And Mental Health Awareness Week has been around for a long time, but lots of people haven't celebrated it in a way that we are celebrating it now. And in 2016, quite a forward-thinking company, one of my clients came to me and said, Zoe, I'd really, we're thinking about mental health in a way that we haven't thought before. I wondered whether you might be able to organise an event for us. And or maybe could we do something in collaboration? Could we invite our employees and you invite your clients? And it could be sort of an open event and, maybe we could do something together. And I thought, oh, this is an interesting idea. And I went to Johnny and Neil and I said, listen, an opportunity has come up. How do you feel about speaking at an event for me in the city, in a big corporate bank, to their employees, and I'm going to invite my clients to come. And they were like, yeah, that sounds interesting. They hadn't done any talks really before at all. Yeah. And they said to me, listen, Rethink Mental Illness, the charity, were instrumental in getting us together. Could they talk on the panel too? And I said, okay, yeah, sounds like a plan. Great idea. And basically, I set up an invitation, sent it out to my colleagues, my clients. The company sent it to their staff. And if I'm honest, I put on client events before. Yeah. And, had a good response and people came along. I could not believe the response that I was getting from this particular event. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Okay, people obviously do know who Johnny and Neil are, or this is just showing me, the interest in mental health. And we put on this breakfast, and it was a business breakfast, and I interviewed them. And all I can remember, there's a lot of things I can remember, but one of the things I can remember is that the client had to stop people coming into the room because too many people were coming. And from a health and safety perspective, they would not let people stand in the aisles or anything. So they set up another room really, really quickly. Their IT people came in and they set up a screen for the overflow of people to stand in another room watching it being videoed in the other room. And I'm just thinking, God, this is like, really? Oh my goodness, this is, and for the first time, I was really nervous because we had a whole crowd. And people, for the first time, heard Johnny and Neil's story. Yeah. And it impacted a lot of people in that room. I think that's kind of safe to say. Johnny was actually, he was quite fragile, and I think it was one of the first times they'd properly spoken, and so it wasn't easy for him. So his his innocence, his truthfulness, his honesty was so raw that after the event, I just had these companies coming to me and saying, Zoe, we want to invite Johnny and Neil in to speak. We've got to start the conversation. This is two men talking about, things that men don't talk about, and I want them to speak at our company. So I get on the phone to Johnny and Neil. I said, listen, you are absolutely amazing. Look what's happened. And so I worked with Johnny and Neil, poor guys, taking them into all these companies, and they started doing all these talks. And a few months later, when they've done 1 million talks in their time, obviously not just through me, but that particular time, within a period of 3 months or so, they did a lot of talks. And we sat down and we went out for lunch one day, and literally we discussed, how have these talks been? What's it been like, and let's talk about it. And again, another stereotypical way, out came the biro and the napkin, and we started writing notes on the napkin. And there were a few key things that were coming out of the talks. And Johnny and Neil felt very fortunate that they sort of got parachuted into all these different companies, and it was quite clear when they went into these companies what they were doing in the area of mental health, or perhaps what they weren't doing. And it was also very clear that companies weren't talking to each other, and they were sort of acting in silo, didn't really know what to do. They did a talk. We then get a phone call to say the talk was brilliant, but what do we do next? And there just seemed to be this kind of lack of understanding of how to integrate mental health into the workplace and how to start having those conversations. And at that lunchtime, This Can Happen was born between me, Johnny, and Neil, and that's how it started.
Wow.
Sorry,
take a breath. Oh no, it's fascinating, and for so many people, when you see the conference and you see how professional it is, and the speakers are just amazing, and the content is incredible for workplaces, knowing how it came about is such an important part of the story as well, because Johnny Benjamin and Neil Aborn, they are amazing guys themselves, and for anybody that is listening, please do check out Johnny's story as well, because it's incredible to listen to, very powerful, and he's written a book around it as well, and it's just it's incredible, and it's an ongoing journey, and that's
100% ongoing.
And I know he has his ups and his downs, and that's like life for all, in many ways, isn't it? So thank you for sharing that. It's a really fascinating story. I love it. And we'll talk a little bit about more sort of the plans, what you want to do with This Can Happen, because it's just incredible. I keep saying so many superlatives around it, just to give it that extra bit of for people to get involved. But your story a little bit. I know when we did the pre-talk, you mentioned there wasn't sort of any major sort of mental health challenges that you've experienced yourself, but of course your role in this world is so critical now to bring forward conversations. So you're like a curator. So you're sat on the other side today. You're sat talking about yourself. So anything in that experience, motherhood, I think, was one that was a big point for you. I've seen some of your work and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about those motivations, your thoughts that were going on at those points, what you wanted to change, because you're obviously very driven in making changes happen. Can you talk a little bit about those?
I think sort of going back to the beginning, seeing, I'd like to think, some differences that we were making to parents' lives at the beginning, and realizing that perhaps if I had had that support in my workplace, just that acknowledgement that I was balancing two jobs in a way, my work job and my home job, I think I would have just felt that extra love a little bit. And so I think from that moment, I I wanted to make people's work lives that bit easier.
Mhm.
And then during that time when I had set up Parents Matter, one particular thing happened to me. Not sort of happened to me personally, but I had a friend, a very, very good close friend, who I always knew struggled with his mental health. It wasn't something that we actually spoke about, but as in we never used the word mental health. I was often at the end of the phone talking to him, and I could tell that he was finding it difficult. Life was difficult, and it was challenging. But then I'd see him a couple of weeks later, and we would be partying, and so I really saw somebody that just found things a little difficult. And one day I had a phone call that I didn't understand. I picked up the phone and I heard this person say something to me, and it was basically, "Come to my house now." That's how I interpreted it. And basically, I went to his house straight away because I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, I witnessed somebody having a psychotic episode. And I did not know what to do. And it was the most scariest thing I'd ever seen. And his mother was there. And he had basically asked for me to be there. But Matt, I can't even explain to you what it was like. And seeing that reinforced the idea to me that I did not know enough about mental health and that this could happen to anybody. And together with that, and just trying to make people's lives a little bit better at work, those two things kind of came together to make me realize that I just wanted to work further in this field. So whilst Employees Matter continues to grow and still does all the things that are non-mental health related, that there is some synergy, but This Can Happen has become sort of my baby link specifically to mental health, where I really realised that work and life are so linked. That is where I decided to dedicate my life in making workplaces better places. And that's basically what we're trying to achieve with This Can Happen, to make people aware of the breadth of mental health, that mental health can seep into our lives at any stage in our life, for whatever reason, whether you have a diagnosis or something or not, and how workplaces can just create kinds of cultures in order to be accepting and understand more about mental health.
Yeah, I you know what, I find it fascinating, and I'm a parent as well, and similar to you, I'm the parent of an adult now, so an 18-year-old. I know you've got a 19-year-old, and I am really fascinated about this connection, especially right now, because in this current crisis, of course, this thing about home and life, home life and work life is sort of, it's joined at the hips now, right? It really is, with the homeschooling challenges that lots of parents face today, and I think that's something that lots of organizations need to recognize a lot more. And I've seen that with a lot of companies. It's all right expecting people to stay productive at home, where you're set up at home, and I've seen that through my own family with my wife's role and things like that, with the expectations originally being, well, you should be more productive because you're at home. Let's be careful, because more productive, but also now taking on the role of headmaster, chief chef, cleaner, and everything that goes with it, dog walker, and whatever it is, we share those responsibilities. So it's fascinating sort of to see your insights and how you took that so many years ago to organizations. It's a focus that's got to have much more attention. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes left in this. I do want you to talk a little bit about the plans for TCH, because I think that's really important to sort of let's put positive thoughts out there about there is plenty of work that's going on. The work that you've done already in the organization within that community, it's just been incredible. So keep doing that. But what's your plan, Zoe? Where's it going?
Well, good question. It's really interesting because when we first set out the conference, did we know where it was going to go? Did we think anyone would want to come to a conference? It was very scary. But in the first year, we had 750 people at a workplace mental health conference in 2018. And, I have to get in that we were very, very fortunate in the first year that Prince William came to speak at the conference. And that was also a real turning point for us. Obviously, goes down in my highlight of my life book, right at the top. Oh, sorry, not above my children, obviously, but one below, and my husband. We, he spoke so candidly on a sofa with other members of the public talking about how work impacted his mental health, and that was a turning point in the in year one that we had that.
Gave me goosebumps remembering it.
It was. I mean, I won't forget going up an escalator with Prince William as he arrived, and he told me that he didn't have a very good night's sleep because George didn't sleep very well. I was like, oh, really? I tried to envisage Prince William going to see George in the middle of the night. And that started off a conversation about mental health and sleep. It was just incredible. So the conference and everything that we do during the rest of the year has grown and grown and grown. I think the pandemic allowed us, if I can say that, to go global because our conference in 2020 was online much earlier than we thought we would. But that has been that was hugely insightful this year for me as the content creator, because we had a whole Asia content, we had USA content, and we had UK and Europe content. And what is clear to see is this is becoming a global, in the workplace, this is becoming a global issue. But the UK is leading, with Asia not far behind, and the US dragging behind a little. And so for us, it's very much about working with our stakeholders in the US, who are kind of couldn't believe what we were bringing to the table, and are slowly coming on board. And in a very kind of the culture, the Asian culture is not doesn't lend itself to talking about mental health, but some real strides are being made there, which was fantastic. Brilliant. So in terms of goals and moving forward, we have, within the year become This Can Happen is now global. And we're having speakers and companies from around the world. And the companies that are supporting us and becoming our friends and buying packages are buying them for their whole company throughout the world. So and that for me to have gone beyond being a UK-centric, dare I say, an even London-centric conference, because so many head offices or whatever in London, we have gone beyond that, and that's the path we want to continue following.
Brilliant, and long may it continue that path is. And I think you're right. The pandemic has helped us to open up the boundaries. The borders have been released in some ways because of these technologies that exist to help support those conversations. And as I said, we were talking before we recorded this. The beauty of this is I get to have conversations with one-to-one conversations, which thankfully other people will hear as well. And we can share these conversations. It's so important to keep that flowing. So I want to wish you all the very best. Date for the conference this year? Is it out there?
Yes, I think it's 16th and 17th of November.
So it's mid-November. So
we're just working on it right now.
Brilliant stuff. This Can Happen is the name of the conference, and really, for anybody listening that hasn't heard of it, please check it out. I'll drop a link anyway in the media for this, or the press for this, so that people can see all about it, because it is just phenomenal and fabulous. Please encourage your companies to get involved in that as well.
And there's so many free resources that we're offering, free webinars. You know, it's not just about the conference. It's, you know, just come in slowly, have a look around, and just to meet other companies that, you know, feel the same way as you, or you're just looking for a way to start. There's loads of resources on the website.
I love it. And, you know, this is a podcast that's going globally as well. I'm going to be having lots of conversations with people, all different markets all over the world. So yeah, fabulous stuff. We're going to wrap, Zoe, on this. I'm afraid it's sort of that time. I just want to say a huge thank you from me, just to, you know, for participating in this. I know you watched one of the episodes and sort of commented. So as I always do, I sort of hijack the comment. Oh, do you want to record an episode as well? And you know what? Lo and behold, we've organized it. We've got a conversation. So fabulous stuff. Any final words you want to share, Zoe? Any wonderful statements?
I just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing. You know, you're having all these conversations with people, and the more conversations that we can have, and the more we can get out there, you know, it's brilliant that you're interviewing such a diverse range of people. So thank you for doing that and for putting all of this out there. It's great.
Oh, thank you. I really do appreciate that. And it's all about perspectives for me. I want to hear perspectives from everyone, and diversity is such an important part of that. So we will continue these conversations. As I always say at the end of these, if you are struggling, if you do need extra help and support, always know there is somebody out there that you can talk to. Please don't feel that you're on your own, especially during these challenging times. It's very difficult. Samaritans exist today to help support those conversations. You can call for free on 116 123, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is always somebody sat there at the end of the line who will be able to just have a conversation and chat with you about stuff similar to what we've done with this, just having a quick chat about things to do with mental health. And I love it. It's great. And I'll be back for my next episodes. Zoe, pleasure. I will see you soon. I wish you all the very best of luck, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.